Normally at such conclaves, we end up criticizing the government. But let's give credit where it's due. Perhaps for the first time, the government has thought well in advance about setting up the second airport. We've all gone through the pain points when the Devanali airport was being constructed, when it was commissioned quite beyond its time. So my first question would go to Ms. Khushboo, who is the MD of KSIIDC. You would have been a part of several meetings, several brainstorming sessions about the airport, and you would have perhaps vetted through hundreds of parameters. So what would be the top 3 parameters that you think of when you select the location for the second airport?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, there have been multiple meetings. Minister M.D. Patil sir is himself spearheading this site selection, and finally, when the site selection is done, it will be informed. There are a lot of parameters which have been considered. The top 3, in my opinion, would be: one is the technical suitability. Of course, they should not be in a hilly terrain, for example. They should not be near any lake, water bodies. It should not be very near to a forested area, and it should not be near a congested, populated area. That would be one of the parameters. Second would be the connectivity. So it should already have some sort of existing connectivity, some road connectivity, if possible, mass rapid transit system, bus connectivity. So connectivity, existing connectivity would be an important aspect. Third important would be the distance which people would have to travel to reach that airport. For example, the current airport, many parts of the Bangalore city, people from many parts have to travel a long distance to reach the current airport. So minimizing the average distance which an average Bangalorean has to travel to that airport would be another important aspect, I would say.
That's a very valid point. Would Mr. Balakrishna add something to this from the business point of view, from the industry point of view?
Good afternoon, everyone. With regards to industrial point, if you take it up, I think the government has already located 2 points. They should look into the infrastructure as well as the connectivity from the industrial hubs where looks like that as of now it is needed. The second airport is needed for the development, accessibility, connectivity and developments with regards to the industries. A lot of people who are coming to Bangalore, it may be for the business or it may be for the tourism or medical tourism, a lot of things which are there. To growth of the revenue of Bangalore in the industry perception, it is needed. Where they have to look into the, as Madam was talking about, the connectivity, accessibility, the other part of now, which is there in the Devanali, it has to go to the other part. They should consider, and the moment when they are identifying that particular airport, they should plan for the logistic also, for people to reach. They should not take a couple of years. By the time they develop it to reach that particular airport, the traffic would have got much more. And I think the real estate, the property value also would go up. Then they feel sad for developing also. The moment when they identify that particular area, the connectivity, it may be mass transportation, it may be metro or other logistics has to be planned very well in advance, much before the airport starts. So that the connectivity would be good, the people to move into the transportation also will be good, and it is needed for the growth of the business community for Bangalore.
Do you have any preferred location, any suggestions?
Well, I think the 2 locations they were already identified. It again depends upon the government decisions for the property, what government property they are owning, and what is that they need to acquire, based on their particular investment also in acquiring the property. But when they are taking a decision, they need to identify, that is what as the chamber, we are asking the government, they should identify, because there is one more airport where the Tamil Nadu is already planning it also. They should not get close to that particular airport because it becomes another headache for the Karnataka. Because if the 2 airports are very close by, the traffic will go to the other part. We will not get. So they need to identify in such a place that let's not go for accommodation with Tamil Nadu. Let's do for best for Karnataka. What is that? They need to identify the place in such a fashion that should be good for our state than the other state.
This question is to Captain Gopinath. Captain Gopinath, you revolutionized air travel. we remember the days when we could travel to Delhi from Bangalore at just 500 rupees. But today, it takes maybe 3 times or even 4 times that amount to reach the airport. And then there's the time factor. You take much more time from your home to the airport than from the airport to your final destination. Now, with the second airport coming up, do you think there would be a reduction in airfares?
Yeah, we also gave 1 rupee tickets, many of them.
Sorry?
We also gave 1 rupee tickets.
1 rupee tickets, yeah.
Yeah. Now, firstly, airlines compete, though of course now it's become a bit of a duopoly. We need more airlines, and similarly, we had to have airports competing with each other. Because while public sector undertakings are inefficient, indifferent, the private sector monopoly, whichever private sector, is a monster. It's like saying Karnataka should have only 1 paper, Deccan Herald. Can you have only 1 newspaper, Deccan Herald? You need multiple papers. So we need to have a competition amongst airports. That is the surest way of bringing down the cost of the air ticket, because today more than 20% of your ticket goes to the airports. And because it is a monopoly where there's a regulator who's monitoring a monopoly instead of monitoring competition. A competition commission or a airport regulator should regulate competition. It's like regulating the railways, right? It's very difficult for you to bring down the railway costs because it's a cost plus. And apart from that, while we need these marble palaces, glittering, which is good, makes us proud, but we also had to have, along with that, low-cost airports. Like in London, for example, one of the prime examples has got 6 international airports. And 1 airport is in the city business district. It is like having it next to the Vidhan Sauda. And all of them are international airports. And they compete with each other, except 2 of them are owned by one private equity. And there are 2 airports which are low-cost airports. Ryanair, for example, which flies from one of the low-cost airports to Luton, flies as many passengers as all of India today. It flies 200 million passengers, and all our airlines together fly about little less than 200 million. So we need to have multiple airports, and we need to have also low-cost terminals next to the airport so that we can have people, common people, moving up the value chain. And the third important thing is that these airports must be in different north, south, east, west, just like in London, because then the city will grow across all the directions. Otherwise, it will be a unipolar direction. And not only Bangalore will grow, not just the real estate, all the ecosystem they will grow, but all along that road and that in the hinterland, industries will come up there. Like if you have it now, to start with, if you have an airport in the north of Bangalore, people coming from Bidadi, where Toyota is there, and even beyond, they'll take 3 hours to reach the airport. So you need to have an airport in the south of Bangalore. And I think the first mistake that we made was shutting the HL airport. I think I was part of the public interest litigation along with Kiran Mazumdar. We never said we don't want the new airport. We said, don't shut the old airport. It had served Bangalore for so many years. It was inefficient, a bit arrogant, like all monopolies are at that time. But there was a civilian enclave, and it was already catering to a large section of Bangalore and that part of Bangalore. We should not have shut that. And if Hosur Airport comes up, which it will, I think, I don't think we should object to that, because it'll also be good for the Bangalore economy, because Hosur economy is dependent on Bangalore. And large part of the Hosur population are in this Jigni area, in the industrial belt, supplying to the TVS. So more the merrier.
Okay, my next question is to Mr. Vivek Menon. A major issue with the current airport is accessibility. You know, I landed in the current airport on the very first day, and we didn't have proper road connectivity, and the flyover came much later. And even to this day, while most airports in the world have multimodal transport, we still don't have metro connectivity to the airport. And you see thousands of cars going to the airport with just one passenger. And we all talk of sustainability. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, fortunately, I think, we are in a session which has a silver lining to that dark cloud. Everybody's been talking about all the problems that Bangalore has. But I'm extremely proud to say that both Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 are world-class. And when we fly in, I think it gives every international passenger a great rush to fly into a beautiful airport like this. Of course, coming to connectivity, unfortunately, in Bangalore, most infrastructure, by the time it's built, it's already obsolete. And that just goes back to the planning processes within all of our parastatals. And so I don't disagree with you. I think initially in those early years of KIA, the Kempegowda International Airport, we didn't even have a seamless road. We didn't, I think it was Dr. Subramaniam who said, let's build some magic boxes, which turned out to be tragic boxes and match boxes. But at the same time, I think what we have to necessarily do is start planning. And I think most of our parastatals, unfortunately, I've been working with the government for the past 17 years now in various capacities. Tendashore was one of them. We're trying to improve these roads. But there are always hindrances to getting the government to move. And the intellectual capacity within governments, and I hate to say this, I know there's a bureaucrat sitting over here, the intellectual capacity in terms of technocrats is completely missing. So very often these plans, like the CDP, which we talked about earlier today, do not see the light of day. They're not necessarily meant to be progressive in nature. I lived in a city called Houston for a good part of my life, and we do have 2 airports over there. Interestingly, in the United States, and I don't know how this is with Europe, but communities do not develop around airports. In India, it's just the opposite. In fact, all of North Bangalore today is growing because of an airport, and I'm not necessarily convinced that everybody flies out of an airport, anybody who lives over there. So I think when I look at Bangalore today, I think one of the biggest problems we've had, especially considering that we have Electronic City, which was a big driver for all of Bangalore in the south. We've also got, the Harohalli Industrial Estate. Initially, in fact, in 1984 to 87, when the original airport was actually, being planned by, I think, the Tata Consortium along with Singapore Airlines, they had chosen South Bangalore. And it was defeated for various political reasons. And I think today in the North Bangalore region, believe it or not, you're seeing a lot of growth in that area, but there's a paucity of water. There's a scarcity of water in that region. And so I think when we look at airports, we've also got to look at the environmental impact of these airports and the growth. Now, growth is great. But at the same time, if it's unplanned growth, we are going to land up with the same problems again and again. The same problems we are facing within the core of the city are going to be faced anywhere else. So my submission is that if we do decide to build an airport in the south, it is extremely important that we look at it in a holistic sense. We look at how communities are going to develop around airports. This particular airport, KIA today can handle about 60 million passengers. They say with the second terminal and the second runway, we can handle up to 90 million passengers. So it is already future-proofed up to 2040. But considering the fact that we do have a non-compete agreement that expires in 2033, the government is obviously proposing a second airport. And I think to be able to service it, just like Captain Gopinath just said, he's a pioneer, obviously he knows more about airports and airlines than any of us do over here. Like he was saying, we don't want growth in just one direction. And so I think Bangalore having a second airport in the south, and you see that in many cities, LaGuardia to JFK, Midway to Chicago O'Hare, Hobby to Intercontinental in Houston. These are all airports that basically look at the demographics, dynamics of a city, and come up. So I think we do need an airport in the south of Bangalore. Unfortunately, the connectivity to any of these airports is strained. Fortunately today, and I beg to differ, I think we do have great connectivity to the airport. Yes, the Hebal flyover is a huge choke point, and I wish they had seen this, when we built that airport 20 odd years ago. But it continues to be a choke point, and it's not because we do not have the intellectual capacity within civic society, believe it or not, to be able to design a good interchange. But it's never going to see the light of day because I should say this, corruption is eating away at the basic fabric of our society today. And the 10,000 and 20,000 and 100,000 crores that are being promised today are just being spent without necessarily any real planning.
Ms. Khushboo, do Indian bureaucrats lack the technical gumption to oversee such projects as Mr. Menon mentioned?
I haven't yet studied the composition of the bureaucracy, how much technocrats are there and how much generalists are there. But I do believe that we have a lot of technocrats. And it's not only about the head being a technocrat, it's the entire team. But what I also understand from Sir is that it's not the only, what he wanted to say was, what I understood was that multiple departments need to come together. They need to plan. For example, if the airport department, like our department is planning an airport, then the Bengaluru Municipal Corporation needs to come in and decide on the municipalities around it. The metro needs to be brought under task, the bus rapid transit system has to be developed. So everything around it needs to be developed. So I do believe in general in government we do have the technocrats. What sometimes has been lacking in the past is the coordination. And I do believe that right now we have already started much ahead, like Sir already said, that we'll be, this first airport will be reaching its capacity somewhere mid of 30s, is what at the expected growth rate. We are growing at 20% at annum per right now. So if mid-30s we reach the expected traffic which will saturate the current airport, then we are planning well in time. And with that planning, if we take care of the industrial corridors, if we take care of the entire infrastructure and ensure that connectivity, which I already said is one of the important factors in considering, then this problem will not come in.
Yes. Now we've seen a lot of development around Devnalli, around North. And this was an opportunity to create some kind of a world-class city around Devnalli. But that didn't happen. What's happened is all the agriculturists there have converted their lands into sites. And today we have a plethora of Bikata sites. We have a mess around Devnalli. The world-class city that we expected is nowhere to be seen. So what are you planning around the new airport to avoid this kind of a situation, to avoid this kind of a mess? Second, what are you planning for the industrial development around the new airport?
So like I said, right, I'm not the right person to say that because right now the site selection itself has not been done. Once the site selection is finalized, after taking technical feasibility from Government of India, after taking the necessary environmental clearances and all the procedural aspects, the planning around it to make it comprehensive, like you said, to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, to ensure that world-class cities, world-class industrial hubs develop around it, the government will definitely take a step.
One silver lining from your remarks is that, this airport is going to be somewhere where there is some connectivity. So ideally, hopefully, it will be somewhere near a metro station. So that is a silver lining.
Just like to add that. So the connectivity is both going to be cause and effect. Ultimately, we need to have some basic form of connectivity, but we'll also plan for better connectivity once the airport site is finalized.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Captain Gopinath, you mentioned about having several airports. We already have the HAL airport. So do you think we should revive HAL airport? Because it was a functional airport, it has served Bangalore very well. You have a tarmac, perhaps the terminal and technology have to be upgraded. So is it a good idea to open HAL?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to open HAL because, he gave examples of Gallo, even Washington, D.C., which is not a great metropolis like New York, has 3 airports. Istanbul has 2 major airports and other smaller airports. The other thing is that when you have multiple airports which are low-cost airports, it'll improve regional connectivity, because today, if you are going from, let's say, Bangalore to Hubli, we should not go to the international airport, because international airport, by its very design and nature and the tender, is a very, very costly airport. Of course, very proud of it. But, you need a Marriott hotel and a Taj. You also need a Udupi hotel. You can't have 400 rupees for idli, for example, right? The airport entry charges, every fee that you pay, the food and the airport landing charges, parking charges, and the private sector, when given a chance, they would want a large Boeing Dreamliner or an Airbus 350 or a 380 landing there, because they make 50 times more money than when they send a ATR 48-seater. So they're reluctant to give you landing slots. Even when the Delhi airport got opened initially in Bangalore, we were finding it very difficult to get slots from Bombay to Nasik, Bombay to all these Kolhapur, Sholapur, where I started flights, and even regionally, because they're reluctant to give you good slots to those airports. We need to have morning and evening flights to most of these regional towns, because people from Bidar want to come to Bangalore. They do not want to go to Jharkhand, right? They want to come to Bangalore because they've got work here. And that will also take investments into the regional towns. If you want investment to go penetrate deep into the bowels of this country, and that's where all our tourism is, all our great tourist spots are in the rural areas, and that is the largest employer in the unorganized sector. So low-cost airports and terminals are key not only to make more common people fly from Bangalore to Delhi, but also to reach the hinterland.
Ms. Khushboo, is there any thought before the government to revive HAL Airport, or is it a closed chapter?
So HAL Airport is under the AAI,
Okay.
that's Government of India. So I cannot speak conclusively on it, but what I understand is they
Isn't
are
that
planning.
isn't the defense
It's under defense,
Defense,
but the
yeah.
operations would be.
was given,
Yes.
the civilian enclave was given to airport authority. When HAL closed, they shut that. But there was a talk by one of the ministers, I think that was probably, it was not serious, that they wanted to reopen HAL.
So even we
Yeah.
have heard that,
Yeah, so-
and after the exclusivity clause expires in 2033, we may expect HAL to plan an opening. However, the capacity will also have to be factored in, and HAL opening may or may not have any impact on the second airport. being
That's true,
planned
that's
as
true,
well.
yes, yes. So there is a glimmer of hope. Mr. Balakrishna, now, you will have a second airport. You have, possibly you'll have an airport in Hosur. You have an airport in Mysore, which is about 125 kilometers away from here. So will all these airports affect the operational feasibility of the existing airports, of the existing airport, KIL?
Well, see, this particular airport, the traffic which is already crossed the limits which are there existing. Now the way the manufacturing hub, the way the things are going on in Karnataka, the way the growth of the business which is happening, I think even this airport also would run in the same fashion, maybe another 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So they need to project in such a fashion that the traffic, what this was planned, 2 or 3 times much more than that they should plan for this particular airport. Because the way the things are growing, I think as our Captain Gopinath made people to use flight, only the rare people were using the flight. Once we started the airport flying, the common man started using it.
Yeah.
Now it's like our city bus. The flight has become like a city bus. Everyone are using this particular flight. So when things are going in that way,
So there is space for more airports.
that's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the government normally talks about huge projects, there are different considerations that come into play. Unfortunately, a major consideration is often what we call certain extraneous factors. Second would be political considerations. How will this project benefit my party? How will this electorally help me? If this project comes up in the constituency of the opposition, will they take credit for this particular project? So let's hope with the second airport, all these considerations will take the sidelines, and the government will only consider the overall public good. Thank you. Thank you to all my panelists.